Wes, happy draft season, my friend.
Yeah, same to you, Alex. We're excited to be here. Finally, all these months and weeks and all this discussion, we finally get something real to talk about.
Speculation, smoke screens, rumors, and here we are. So I guess let's start there. I mean, the Packers, 3 picks in the top 45. Talk to me about how crucial that is to a team's success who went 6-9-1 a year ago, a first-year head coach, and now really trying to rebuild and restructure and become that threat they were just a few years ago. 3 picks in the top 45.
Yeah, it's critical, and it would be. I mean, if the Packers were 16-0 or 0-15, you get 3 opportunities like this inside the first 44. You have to capitalize. It's the first time the Packers will have 2 first-round draft picks in 10 years. The first time they've gone into a draft with multiple first-round draft picks in however long that's been. To be sitting at 12, the highest they've picked since taking B.J. Raji in 2009, to have that 30th pick in their back pocket as well. The thing I guess I'm most intrigued by is seeing what the board's going to look like. There has been so much movement, so much discussion, guys rising and falling in the last couple days, and trying to figure out what is real out of that and exactly what is the smoke screen. So it's going to be critical. The Packers need to make hay with these picks.
Yeah, a lot of movement within the top 10, as you mentioned. So I want to ask you, and you've probably been asked this question a million times, so I'm sure you have an answer down for me. But I guess it's your preference more than what the Packers will do or what the Packers will do if you have some inside info, which you might. Is it more positionally that they're looking for at 12? Is it best available? Is it a little bit of both? How are they walking into that 12th pick?
Well, here's what's really intriguing about that 12th pick in this year's draft is that there's 2 positions that I think are just littered with guys that could be, potential fits for them at positions. That's offensive line and defensive line.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's a lot of guys that are probably the top at their position, but there's maybe not that guy directly right after it that would be the next pick. When you look at like T.J. Hawkinson is pretty much all and above the top tight end. Right. You look at what I believe, Devin White coming out of LSU as a linebacker, pass rushers, that probably are going to be off the board. So for me, when I look at this, I think it's going to be intriguing to see, okay, do one of those top guys at their position or maybe 1 or 2 top guys at their position fall to 12 that they're there? Or is that where you're going to be looking at, 3 or 4 defense or offensive linemen that could be fits? I think no matter what, they're going to stick, that best player mindset, that's just throughout the league now. That's what everybody's selling. But from the Packers' perspective, it served them well in the past when you look at Kenny Clark in 2016 and some of the other moves they've made. So the biggest thing for me when the Packers go on the clock, if they stay at 12 and pick at 12, is seeing who potentially has fallen. Do you see a Montez Sweat there after some of his medicals, a Rashawn Gary, or is it just going to be your tried and true, Andrew Dillard and some of these, offensive linemen that could very well be worth the 12th pick, but maybe aren't a threat to be those top 5 or top 10 guys?
Yeah, I know obviously a lot of the fans, and I'm sure you read all the stuff on Twitter, they want a sexy pick at 12, Wes. They want a guy that's going to jump off the page and say, holy crap, this is life-changing, this is game-changing for the Packers. Is there like a dream guy for you to maybe cover or a guy that you'd love to see in green and gold from that number 12 pick?
Well, I think the guy that is my favorite player in the draft is probably White from LSU. I love the way he plays. I love his makeup. I think he's built for that position in 2019. But Devin Bush is really intriguing, too, out of Michigan. Now, again, is he going to be there at 12? We'll see. The Packers kind of have a sort of an opening at inside linebacker. Last year they navigated most of that season with a safety playing that spot next to Blake Martinez. Martinez is in a contract year. They have Oren Burks, but maybe you could stand to add another player. I think it's probably more reasonable that it's going to be offensive or defensive line because those are positions where there's going to be a lot of value. They're both considered deep in this draft. There's a lot of versatility that guys could plug and play depending on how things go going into the season. So, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing is just seeing, who could potentially be a good fit for them because I just don't see a T.J. Hawkinson being there. I don't see some of these top-of-the-line pass rushers being there. Now, the other question becomes, do you look at a Brian Burns, the edge rusher out of Florida State? where is Noah Fant going to go after Hawkinson gets taken? Those are all things that I think are going to be the biggest questions we're going to see get answered on Thursday night.
Yeah, you want to talk about stock going up. Hawkinson's has gone through the roof over the last 2 months, and now it looks like he could go as early as maybe 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that range, way before the Packers can even get their hands on him. We're joined by Wes Hodkiewicz, staff writer at Packers.com. You can find all his good stuff at Wes Hod on Twitter. You mentioned it before, Wes, so I want to follow up on that. You said if they stay at 12 was your word. So what are the odds they maybe make another move like they did last year? And it worked out nicely. They got Jair Alexander out of it. What are the odds they move around on Thursday?
I think it's pretty good, especially with them having the 2 picks.
Right.
It's totally conceivable. 30 is intriguing because of, the 50-year option rule. There's been a big need now, not big need, but there's been a big push in recent years for teams that need a quarterback to move back into the first round so they can actually have that 50-year option on a player, how valuable that is at that position, especially when you're developing a quarterback. You saw it happen a number of years ago with Teddy Bridgewater and the Vikings going up to get him. So that could be possible. That could be, in terms of maybe moving back again or gave more capital for the future. I think it'd be really intriguing to see, maybe they pick at 12, but maybe move up a few spots from 30 if there's a guy in that range that they really like. I think they have the picks that they can do it. My colleague Mike Spofford even asked me, he's like, in one of our shows that we did, how many picks do you see the Packers making? I said 9. I think it's totally plausible in those first 2 days, those first 4 picks, that they move up at one of those spots to get a player.
Okay.
Again, it's all going to come down to how the board falls, but Brian Gutekunst has shown, especially with his first year in that chair, he's more than willing to move around, back, forward, in between, if there's value on the board and if he feels there's a player that he can get at a particular spot.
You led me right into my next question. That's Gutekunst. Obviously, at least so far, seems a lot more aggressive than his predecessor, Ted Thompson. So what is kind of the mindset? I'm sure you've spoken to him quite a few times at pressers. What is his mindset heading into his second draft, really his first one where he knows everything that goes on, and it's hard to know everything that goes on during draft day.
Yeah.
But what's the mindset for him?
Yeah, a lot of excitement, I think, because one, he has these 2 first-round picks, but 2, this is his personnel department now. Milt Hendrickson came over from the Baltimore Ravens in the personnel department. He's assigned these regional scouts. I mean, it's really, his team now. So seeing exactly, those sort of, kind of shifts coming together, I think has been really exciting. And again, just seeing how this board falls. These guys run hundreds of simulations in different scenarios. I mean, mock drafts are so popular in the public's eye, but, behind closed doors, I mean, they're going through all the different stuff. They're running the analytics. They're trying to figure out who are likely trade partners at different spots and where teams might be looking to, better their rosters. So that's the chess game that these GMs love playing. And I think from Gutekunst's perspective, last year he played it masterfully. I mean, he was able to acquire the extra first-round pick for, basically moving back 4 spots, and he's still got Jair Alexander, who looks like he's going to be a player in this defense for years to come. So, the bigger question is going to be, as years go on, what kind of trends develop? I mean, Ted Thompson was very ultra-aggressive, too, in that 2009 draft, and you saw how that helped the Packers solidify a championship team. So that's going to be, I think, one of the more fun things to see as Gutekunst gets more comfortable in that chair, is seeing exactly, what his overall philosophy is and how that can be reflected upon the draft class.
Absolutely. Speaking of guys in-house that are new, how about Matt LaFleur? He's the head coach of the Green Bay Packers entering his first year. How important is it for him to get a guy? He's an offensive coach. How important is it for him to get a guy, maybe in those first 3 picks in the top 45? You mentioned tight end, maybe wide receiver has been speculated if DK Metcalf somehow falls to 30. How important is it to get maybe an offensive piece that Matt LaFleur can really get his hands on in his first year?
Well, it's been a while since the Packers have used top-of-the-line draft capital to help their offensive skill position.
Right.
Historically, you look back to Devontae Adams in the second round of 2014. They've done really well with receivers in that spot. Again, we'll see exactly how they feel about that position in this year's draft, and if they feel they need to have a guy that's a little bit more of that slot-type player and not as tall and lengthy. There's certainly a number of different prospects on that board that could fit into that second-day range that might fit the offense. But also, tight end position is really interesting to me, too. It hasn't been since 2014 the Packers have used I think a top 100 pick on that spot. And you have Jimmy Graham coming back, you have Mercedes Lewis, and people are incredibly excited about Robert Tonyan. But tight end's also a position that not every day are you able to just, draft a guy and have him start day one. Those guys sometimes need a year or two to really get, their feet underneath them to become a player in this league. And, Irv Smith out of Alabama, a lot of years, he'd be the top tight end on the board. He'd be probably a surefire, top 40, top 30 pick. But, with the two Iowa guys, you don't know where he's going to be.
Right.
There's a lot of depth at that position as well. So do I see the Packers taking an offensive skill position in those first 2 days? I think it's definitely possible. But, I think there's still a part of Brian Gutekunst, too, that likes that old Ted Thompson philosophy that you get the big guys early on and you start to find guys that fit in from there. So, again, it all goes back to the philosophy and trying to start, dusting away some of the sand, so to speak, and seeing, what Brian Gutekunst is all about and what he really values in a draft class.
Yeah, Wes Hodkiewicz trying his best to be a psychic for us, staff writer at Packers.com. Let's talk about last year's draft, 2018 fifth-round pick Cole Madison. He took the year off for mental health issues. Now he's back in the offseason training workouts. You spoke with him earlier this week. You did a great piece on Packers.com. Talk to me about that whole situation with Madison.
Yeah, I think it's pretty refreshing, to be quite honest with you.
Right.
Cole Madison was a fifth-round pick last year, and if I had $1, if I had a nickel, if I had a quarter for every time someone over the last 365 days had asked me about him before he left and then after obviously he left, I'd be a rich man. I'd be retired by this point. People really thought he could be a starter on that line last year. They thought he could fit into that guard role, and he looked really good during the offseason program. He looked the part. He looked versatile. And then obviously made the decision not to report back for training camp. And, the Packers stood by him throughout that process. I think sometimes we get so gripped into the game of football and in this profession and wins and losses that sometimes we lose sight of the human side of this game. And Cole Madison is a good reminder of that. And it was really, I thought, refreshing to hear him talk about his own situation. He has no regrets about what he did. He communicated with the organization. They stood behind him. And then one of his big quotes when he spoke with the media was, "They had my back. Now I want to have theirs." So he's back. He's in a better spot. He took the time. He sought help. He reached out, had a good support system around him in Washington, and now feels like he's back in a place where he can love and appreciate the game of football again. And, still has a big fire in him to excel at this game. And now has the, personal and mental backing behind him to play to that full capability.
Inspiring, refreshing is the word you chose, and definitely hard to root against Cole Madison. So hopefully he can bring the Packers a big punch and a big spark at the offensive line position. Last one for you, Wes. We're going to step away from Packers.com, maybe do a little azcardinals.com here. They have the number one pick overall. We talked about smoke screens at the beginning. Kyler Murray, the Heisman Trophy winner, maybe one of those, maybe not. Just tell me truthfully, if you were a betting man, who would the Cardinals pick at number one? Who will they pick at number one tomorrow?
So here, I'm going to go over a little bit of a philosophy I've always had.
Oh, boy. I like this.
This is going to be a long answer to your short question, but I had a theory a number of years ago after they switched the CBA in 2011, where first overall picks no longer are getting $50 million guaranteed. The contracts are a lot more reasonable. I had this theory, right, that I think if you don't have the man, if you don't have the quarterback that you think is going to be an MVP, Super Bowl type quarterback, to keep drafting the position until you find that player. The Cardinals very well might test that theory for me with Kyler Murray. If I was them, I think I make that move. I understand he's not a surefire thing, but coming off of what Baker Mayfield did, the fact that the Cardinals had a hard time filling their stadium last year, I think you got to find a guy. He obviously has a history with Cliff Kingsbury. I think you have to find a guy that reignites them a little bit, that gives them some energy. Is there a chance that Rosen ends up being a better quarterback in the long run? There's definitely that possibility. I think the guy can play in the league. I think he has that potential. There's a reason why they took him where they took him. But this year they have the opportunity to take the top quarterback in the draft, and I think for their purposes and where they're at right now, and talking to some of the people that I know down there, I just feel like Kyler Murray might be the guy for them.
Okay, there it is. You heard it here first. Wes, if you're right, I'll definitely give you some mad props. So that's Wes Hodkiewicz, senior.
Yeah, 10 years from now, let's circle back on that one. Okay.
Okay, we'll wait 10 years for that. Okay, good. Wes Hodkiewicz, senior philosopher and psychic, as well as staff writer at Packers.com. He's got a cool job because he's damn good at it. Ask at Wes Hod on Twitter. Wes, thanks so much, my friend. Let's talk again soon.
All right, thanks, man.